Guys, we're going to move on from what Damien was talking about, the construction period before we had our break. Obviously the construction period, and within a contract you have to provide a commencement date when you're going to start the work. Some people may disagree with what I'm going to say, but I believe I've got the right idea. It's very difficult to put in a start date because when you're building a residential property, there are a number of factors that have to be taken into account before you can actually start. Those factors are that there must be council and certifiable approval before you start. The owner must be able to pay the contract, so there's finance approval. There's got to be access to the land. The owner's got to own the land before you can actually get onto it. So, when it comes to a start date, the owner is liable for probably two of those factors and you are liable for one, if that's the way you do the contract. The owner has got to go and sort their own finance out, and they've got to provide you a finance letter to say that yes, they do have the finance, and I'll talk about other arrangements of finance later. So they are responsible for that. They are responsible for ensuring that they own the land, and they've got to give you a copy of the title so you can see that they own the land, so you can go out there and start building it. The other one is building approval. All right. Now you as a builder, you've got the expertise of doing this sort of stuff, so you might put in your contract that you will be responsible for building approval. This is where the commencement date is very important. If you put a commencement date on your contract, I'll go back, you say that you're going to start on the 7th of March. That's the commencement date on your contract. You're going to start on the 7th of March. What happens if you don't get building approval? You haven't got building approval, so you can't start, and it might be 3 or 4 weeks depending on what the problem is. There is a way around it. The contractor must ensure that the work under this contract starts by the latest of the starting date stated in the contract. It's 10 days after that date. You've got to start within 10 days. Okay? Or 7 business days after issuing the approved plans or by the certifier, 7 days after the owner providing proof of satisfactory site and financials. So if you're going to be responsible for building approval and certification, are you going to put in there a start date? I think not, because you might not be able to control it. But if you do, your contract is going to start on that actual date. Your contract, not the construction, but your actual contract. So if it goes in for a month, you might find that you don't start until the 2nd of April. You're a month behind before you start. So what's that going to do? It's going to put you a month behind on your contract. What's that going to do? That's going to hit you up with liquidated damages because you've gone over your completion date. My advice would be, do not put a start date down there if you are responsible for any of the conditions that require you to start, because you might not be able to control them. All right? Question? Incalculable delay? No, because your contract hasn't started. Because you need to get council approval before you can start. So you can't start without that, so no, it's not an incalculable delay because nothing started. The question is there anywhere in the contract that states that the contract doesn't start until building approval has been received? Yep. Yes, there is. There are 2 parts to the contract. It is a start date or 7 days after all of this is received. And one of them is building approval. One of them is council approval. One of them is loan approval, certifiers approval. So that's what you do. You tick that box to say, it'll start 7 days after I receive all of this information. And that's where it comes from.
Would you know about putting it as a prelim agreement? Did you not put that?
Yeah, you could do. You could put building approval as a preliminary agreement on the preliminary agreement, that a condition of the preliminary agreement. It's probably a bit premature at that stage because they haven't really signed a contract, so by putting that information onto the preliminary agreement, you're probably opening up a can of worms to have to explain what you mean, whereas you're probably better off waiting till you get to the contract. And look, it is there black and white, but you could have it as a special condition of the contract to say it's not going to start until I get building approval, particularly if you deal with councils aren't too bad these days. Certifiers, you know, if a certifier is really busy, it might take a while for it to get certified, especially with this sustainability stuff that they've got to certify now. Liquidated damages is the amount of money that you would be liable to pay an owner if you go over your contract completion date. All right, go back. Oops, back. Contract completion date, 18th of July. That's when we said we're going to complete. If you go over that and you can't give a time extension claim, you're going to have to pay liquidated damages. And there are liquidated damages in every contract. Up until recently, the clause was very clear. It said for the amount of liquidated damages will be, and it left it blank. And guess what most of us technical term builders did? We put $1 in there. $1 a day. Yeah, great. Probably because we didn't understand what liquidated damages really meant. Knew that it could hurt, so I'm not going to make it hurt, I'm going to make it $1. Again, so much litigation going on at the moment, so many problems. Legislation has been changed that the law now says that if there's nothing stated, liquidated damages will be $50 a day. Okay? So if you don't put anything in your liquidated damages clause and you end up in the tribunal, the judge is going to order $50 a day. Okay, so they've sorted that one out. However, let's say the owner wants you to put in $200 a day. Wow, that's a lot of money. But you really want this contract because you need the work and a few other things. So don't be frightened of liquidated damages because they won't bite you unless you let them. Right? If an owner wants you to put a high amount of liquidated damages in, that's fine. $200, $500 a day, I don't care. Put it in there. But what you're going to do is compensate your completion time. You want $500 a day, my completion time is going to be somewhere down here. So you know that you're not going to get pinged for liquidated damages by having an extended contract. They don't need to know that. Right? You've worked out, this is worked out without an owner. They don't know. All they know is that you're going to start 7 days and finish, 132 days later. All right, so you might start here. Your finish date is 132 days later, which is up here somewhere. But if you've worked out that your 132-day contract is on $50 a day, liquidated damages, and your owner wants to have $200 a day in there, it's simple. Just extend your completion date to cover yourself. Because $200 a day is a lot of money. I will come to your question. How this works in a tribunal. For those of you who are working with contracts and you work with liquidated damages, and remember we're only talking residential building construction here, not your commercial one. I'd love to tell that story, but I'm not going to. Many builders currently put in $1 in their liquidated damages. They get into trouble, haven't put in a time extension claim, gone over time, owners ask for their claim as liquidated damages, and they give them $50 because it's gone over by 50 days. Yeah, $50 a day, $50. You're kidding me. All of a sudden that just generates one hell of a dispute because, as John said, they've organised their removalists, they've organised furniture, they've organised this, they've organised that, and you're going to give them $50 for compensation? I don't think so. You're going to end up in the tribunal. First thing the judge is going to look at is how much is your liquidated damages you've put in? $1. Sorry, Mr. Builder, that is absolutely frivolous. That means nothing. You've diddled the owner here. So the judge is there going to turn around and say, well, owner, you are right. You are entitled to liquidated damages. And trust me, they are going to put in a claim like you wouldn't believe, because they're going to put in for their time, they're going to put in for their losses, they're going to put in for accommodation, and trust me, they ain't going to have rent of a house that's in vicinity. They're going to put in rent for going into the Hilton Hotel for the last 4 weeks. And you're going to have to pay for that. They're going to put in for a container that they've had to put all their storage, their furniture in. They're going to put in for dog kennels and cat kennels that they've had to put their animals in. All because the builder put in $1 a day. It's going to cost him thousands, because the judge says to the owner, you are right, you are entitled to liquidated damages because the builder has been frivolous. So you put in a realistic amount. Government have said $50 a day is fine, because how they work it out is if you do go over and the owner has to reside somewhere, they look at the surrounding area and what would be the rental cost of living in that area. Let's say the rental cost might be $350 a week. Well, that's what the tribunal would consider fair. That you've allowed enough. If you go over your contract and they have to go and rent somewhere, you've allowed enough for them to rent. Forget about all the rest of it. That doesn't come part of it. If you allow for rental, then that's fine. But you put in $1, you end up in court, it's going to cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Trust me, I know. I've been there. Yes, question? $50 is the minimum. Yep, you can't go any lower than $50. You can certainly go higher. If you want to go higher, then I recommend that you extend your construction period. Right? Remember, this is not your building period. This is not how long it's going to actually take you to knock everything together. This is your contract period. Your contract starts on that date, your contract finishes on that date. If you're concerned that you're going to get stuck with liquidated damages, put your contract finish date down here. Add another week to it. Don't get caught. Question? The question is, can you cap your liquidated damages? I've not seen it in my time, but if I was an owner and I came to you and said, look, I want you to build my home for me, I want $1,000 liquidated damages a day, what are you going to say? See you later, I'm not interested. Because that should tell you something in your gut that they're going to, if they want that much, they're just out to get me. And they will, trust me. They know this stuff more than what you guys do. And if they want that sort of thing, if they start putting demands on you, like $1,000 a day, or I want it built in 6 weeks, I've got to be in it, don't get caught with that one, I want to be in before Christmas. Please don't get caught with that, because you might say, yeah, I think I can do it. I can actually build it, right? But what happens if it buckets down rain? Sure, you can put in time extension claims, but you might forget one, or you might not put something in. They know these contracts more than what you might think. The reason why you're here today, hopefully, yes. The question is, does your time extension claim have to be in with a certain period of time? The real answer is within a fair and reasonable time. My administration as a builder, I would do one every 2 weeks. So if it was raining and it rained for 2 weeks, I'd put one in then. It might still be raining. I'd put another one in another 2 weeks. Then it might dry out, but I can't get on site, so I do another one in another 2 weeks. That would be considered fair and reasonable. It starts raining today and it doesn't finish for a month's time, and then you can't get on site for another 3 weeks. Don't wait until after that before you put your time extension claim in, because a couple of things, your owner doesn't want to get shocked like that. All of a sudden you're going to hit him for an extension of time of another 6 weeks. that could be a dispute. Your contract period your contract completion date is extended. You want to try and make it as soft as you possibly can for your owners. So while it's raining, put in a time extension claim. And they go, oh yeah, it is raining. Okay, happy with that. I'll move on to variations. You've done your contract, building a house, or for those of you who are doing renovations, you're doing a large renovation. $250,000 worth, $500,000 worth for a house. You're up to pre-paint. So all the brickwork's up, plaster's in, carpentry work's done, roof's on, all that sort of stuff. The owner comes to you and is going through the house, and you happen to be there, and they turn around and say, oh look, didn't realise this, but the way the house is facing, that window is really not, it's not right there. It'd be, if we could get the view out there, it'd be really, really good. Would you mind, is it possible? Can you move that window from there over to there? Jeez. Well, I can do it. It's going to cost you a few bob. Yeah, that's all right. We really do want to see this view. Look, I'll work it out and I'll come back to you. Say you go and talk to all your contractors, you know, bricklayer to cut it out, and your plasterer and moving it, and your carpenter and all that sort of stuff. It's worth $3,500. Go back to the owner. Yeah, look, I've worked it all out. It's a fair bit of money. It's going to cost you $3,500 to move it. Oh yeah, okay. Yep, that'd be great. We can afford that, and look, for that money for the view, fantastic. Okay, all right. So you call all your trades in, or the ones that might be working there, guys, we've got to move that window from there over to there. And they do that. Finish the house, beautiful, right? Get to handover, practical completion. You invite the owners in, and they've been away, so this is the first time they've seen it since the last time they were there. And they come in, and oh look, he's moved the. Oh, look at what's outside the window. Oh, you're kidding. There's a bloody great power line or something that was there. Oh, I don't want to look at that. And look, it's facing west. The sun comes in and it's making this bloody house so hot. Oh, no, can't have that. Well, I'm sorry, but you told me to do that. I'm not going to put it back. Well, if you're not, I'm not going to pay you, says the owner, for it. That's bloody horrible. Why would you do something like that? Well, you told me to do it. And this is the way it goes on, guys. You might have been there before. You may have been in this situation. End up in a dispute. You either go to John or come to me and we try and mediate it. Doesn't work. You end up in the tribunal. An actual judge that sits there. You go in, what's the claim? Builder says, the owner told me to move this window from there over to there, Your Honour. I've asked them for $3,500 and they won't pay me. Guess what the owner's going to say? We didn't tell you to do that. We didn't say to move the window. They're going to lie. They will literally lie. Trust me, there are people out there that do that. They're not all saints. And look, Your Honour, it says on the plan here that the builder gave us that the window's there and he's put it there. He's done it wrong. Sorry guys, but the judge is going to turn around and say, builder, you are wrong. Where's your bit of paper that says variation to say that, well, I didn't get one. I just said it's going to cost you, and they said it was, well, I'm sorry. You are going to have to go and put that back in accordance with the plans because that's what it says. And not only that, you're going to have to pay to do it. You're not going to get paid. You're going to have to go back and fork out another $3,500 to do it. And oh, by the way, while you're at it, you better pay for the court costs as well. All because he didn't write out a variation. If he had have written out a variation, it wouldn't have gone anywhere. The owner would have had to pay the $3,000. They would have had to put up with the window facing west or whatever. And if they wanted it put back, the builder would have got paid again. Everyone understand that story? And it's not just big windows. It could be A light. Look, don't like that light there, move it to there. They put it there. Oh, don't like that, put it back. It's a variation to the contract. Anything that gets changed, anything at all, you must have it in writing. What I suggest you do, there are plenty of variation books out there. Master Builders, HIA, BSA, whatever. I don't care. Go and get yourself a triplicate book or even a duplicate book out of the post office, out of the newsagent. When the owners turn up and say, oh look, can you move that window from there over to there? The answer is, yeah, hang on a minute. I'll go and get my book out. Now, what did you want? You wanted to move the window from elevation A to elevation B. It's going to take me an extension of time of so many weeks, so we're going to extend the contract, time extension claim, and it's going to cost you $3,500. Here, sign that. Oh, $3,500? Oh, geez. Yeah, well, look, I didn't really think it was going to cost that much. No, you better leave it where it is. All right, so you've actually proven to them that you might have done all that work and then found out that they couldn't afford it anyway. Right? Questions? Start from down here. And the question is, can you get the variation paid straight away? You can, but normally it would be with the next progress payment. Yeah. Right. S down the back.
You don't need to put that in straight away with the variation?
No. No, you do not need to put in a time extension claim with your variation because it is a variation to the contract. Look, if you know that you seriously know that it's going to take you 4 days, well, yeah, put it in. But if you don't, because you've got to get contractors back on site, right? So they've gone to another job, they might turn around and say, look, I can't get back there for another 6 weeks. So you don't know how long it's going to take you to do this at the time of variation. You're happy to do it, but it might be a long time. So you wait until the job is complete, then you put in a time extension claim on a variation. So you guys are going to go out there as builders, right? You're going to have contracts in place, you're going to be working away, and trust me, someone will come to you and say, oh, can you do this for me? You're all nice blokes. Yeah, of course I will. Ha, beauty. Hey, listen, I've got a carton out the back. I'll here, give you a carton for it. Right. That's fine. You think, oh, they're nice customers. And they keep coming and saying, oh, look, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Can you do that? And they keep paying you in beer, or they might do you a favour or something like that. Favours don't act as contracts, trust me. Beer is not a contract. What's going to happen, and some of you guys might be doing this already, what's going to happen is you're going to get to the end of the job and you're going to sit down and add up all these tiny little bits and pieces of things that these people have done, asked you to do, which you've done, and what have you got out of it? A couple of slabs. Well, that's not really enough, so I'm going to hit them with a variation for all the work that I've done for them. At the very end, guess what they're going to do? They're going to just laugh at you and say, you didn't tell me you're going to charge me for this. It's too late now, sorry. Let me see if I got this right. The frame's up, the roof's on, the electrician's coming tomorrow, and unbeknownst to you, the builder, the owner has spoken to the electrician because they know who the electrician is and have asked him to put in more PowerPoints. Yep. So to do that, and one of the PowerPoints is for a clothes dryer. Yep. To have a clothes dryer, I've got to have a piece of nogging to hold the clothes dryer on. So he races up to the site, unbeknownst to you, the builder. Chippy's on site. Mate, can you put a piece of nogging up there for my dryer? Yeah, all right, not a problem. He does that. The electrician puts his PowerPoint on. When he moves in, the dryer falls down because the nogging wasn't, he just stuck it up there, he didn't nail it in. And the dryer falls off the wall. And the owner comes back and says, you're the builder, right? Hey, you've got a problem, boy. Half my plaster wall's just fallen down off my laundry. You go there and go, but hang on a minute. There was no dryer on the plan, no PowerPoint on the plan. Where did that come from? Who put this piece of nogging in? And you might even find that it could have been the owner. I've seen that happen a number of times as well. Before the plaster goes in, the owner goes around and puts noggings in everywhere. Hang their speakers off or put their dryer on. Right? Possibly a problem for you, a builder, if you're not good at dealing with disputes, could be a problem. My suggestion to you guys would be you talk to your customer, tell them, look, that wasn't part of the contract, I'm not responsible for it. They're going to get all hot-headed. I would strongly recommend that you go to someone that can help you. I'm not saying come to me, go to John, he'll help. Right? He's not here, you can all go to John. Right? That's what we do, we mediate. Right? And hopefully our success rate is fairly good. That is a consumer problem, right? But very difficult for a builder to try and talk his way. You know, if you've got a consumer that's are there any school teachers in the room? Come on, honestly, I don't want to pick on anybody that... Right? No, it used to be, he's not close enough. Particularly if you've got a school teacher. School teachers are very good at making sure that they get what they want. And if you're... Oh, look out, here's a story.
I'd like to add, to what Paul's saying, though, with your problem, you were speaking about the client, or who was that over there?
At the back there, yeah.
Okay, the client, and so the plasterboard and everything's been taken off the wall, or whatever, is that correct? John and Paul has been saying it in depth. It's the scope of the work that you are contracted to. Yeah. Part of the scope is to provide adequate supervision. That's your role as the builder, you're the principal contractor. It could come back onto you and say, well, you know, if you were providing adequate supervision, you would have been on top of this and not let this happen, or use the appropriate documentation prior to it being installed. There's probably a strong possibility that you would have to wear that, simply because you didn't meet all of the criteria that you signed the contract to do under the scope of work that you were going to do. And this is the purpose of today. You've got to be really, 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 really vigilant in when undertaking a contract that you are on site or you are following the site processes through your supervisors and receiving the reports so that you can justify anything that's ever happened. So in that case, I would suggest that you, well, I'm going to be a little bit hard, and this is the way John would approach, and Paul knows this too. I would put the blame back on you, and you're not providing enough adequate supervision. You haven't spoken to your subcontractors to speak to them to say, under no circumstances, and in the clause of owner's obligations, it does say that all communications must be with the builder and the builder only. Okay, so that again, going back to reading your conditions of the contract, it states that very clearly in black and white, and that's where you would have to bring that up with your client before the contract, on the commencement of the contract.
None of that is common knowledge for you. So if you get into that situation, that's where you need to go and get help, because it's possible that the owner has gone to Damien and said, hey, help me out in this situation. So he's just come along and go, whack. Oh, shit, that hurt. You probably need the same sort of help, so you're in control of what your contractual obligations are as well. All right. Well, we've got a lot of questions. If you've got an agreement, if you've got an agreement with your subby, if you haven't got an agreement with your subby, if I'm your subby, see ya, pal. And that, we're going to talk about insurance, but you've also got to be aware, and you probably are, that when you become a builder, you are responsible for everything that happens on that site, right? BSA are going to come to you as the builder in the first instance. What you do with your contractors is up to you. The BSA is going to come to you, builder, and say, builder, you are wrong, you fix it, right? Then it's up to you to go and then sort it out with your contract. They're not going to, so you will be responsible. It's your contractual obligation, as Damien said. That is tough, because the owner's under obligation as well as you are. The obligation for the owner is that you will only deal with the builder, right? when you sign a contract with your subbies, you really should be stipulating them, guys, if you're working for me, right, don't even think about doing anything for the owner. It's all got to come through me as a builder. And again, the beauty of having a contract, then that makes them liable. Right? And that, I suppose, in a way, if you are trade contractors at the moment, you don't have a contract with your builder and something goes wrong, you just walk away. Because the builder then has to take civil action. Yes, got to take civil action, not through the building action. The next one I want to talk about is the prime cost items and provisional sums. Two things that you can put into your contract regarding pricing. When you're doing a contract, you are obligated to price reasonably with the stuff that you know. All right, so you can get a quote from your electrician, so you know how much the electrical is going to be. You can get a quote from your plumber, so you know how much the plumbing is going to be. Right? Or if you know all that, you've got to put it down in the contract. You can't simply put it down as PCs and PSs. What you can do, however, okay, you ready to write? The difference between a PC and a PS, they're not the same. Prime cost is for material only. Provisional sum is for labour and material. It's the easiest way to work it out. Don't put everything down in your contract like some people do and they just have one thing they call a provisional sum, or they might call it a PC. It's not the same. Okay. Prime cost, material only. You have a labour rate for your tiler. He's going to charge you $50 a square metre to do tiling, providing they're within a certain range. But you don't know what the tiles are, right? You've got to put down, because you know the area that's going to be tiled, you've got to put down the amount of labour involved in that tiling. But you put the tiles in as a PC because the owner hasn't chosen those tiles yet. You might PC the tiles at $100 a square metre or something like that. Again, guys, don't try and make money out of PCs. You'll come unstuck all the time. Make the money out of your supplier giving you it at a good rate. But when you put it in as a PC, make sure you put it in retail price, because that's what the owner's going to go and see when they get to the factory. Provisional sum. Provisional sum, labour and material. Might be a driveway. Even though you've got rates for the concreter, right, the owner hasn't stipulated whether they want a champagne flute or exposed ag or coloured or stenciled or whatever. Because there's labour and material involved in that, you put that down as a provisional sum. I strongly advise that you use as few of them as you possibly can. Provisional sums and prime cost items. Another prime cost item could be your plumber's giving you a rate to plumb out a 2-bathroom house, but the owner hasn't chosen the taps, the tapware. So you put that in as a PC item. Right? So it's whatever the owner hasn't chosen is what you use for these PCs and PSs. Anyone got a quick question on that? Maybe. The question is, can you be stung as a builder for not putting a fair and reasonable cost in your prime cost and provisional sums items? The answer is yes. And I'm sorry, but I go back to the law says that you as a builder must be within, and what they categorise a category of good and bad, 10%. So if the price is $100, you can be $90 that way or $110 that way. All right, that's what they consider fair and reasonable. So be fairly close. Don't go in like you just said. If it's worth $5,000 and you go in there at $1,000 to win the contract, and when you come to do your PC, if that then becomes a disputable item, you're going to get pinged for not putting in a fair and reasonable price. Yep. Yeah. You've put in the contract $40 a square metre.
Yeah.
And they've gone out to their factories and they've chosen a tile worth $50 a square metre, right? It's a simple transaction that your prime cost item is 40, you've chosen 50, there's 100 square metres, so you owe me $1,000. Yes, that's how it works, right? Whatever the difference is, you put in an allowance of $40 and they go and pick a Listetto that comes from Italy and it's worth $150 a square metre, that wouldn't be seen as frivolous, right? Because they haven't chosen, they haven't told you that they want want to get a tile from Italy. All right, so it's a variation to say, well, your PC was 40, these things are 150, so you owe me $110 a square metre. Yeah. Okay, last one. The question on that one was, if they pick something cheaper than your allowance, do you have to pay it back? Yes, you do. You don't pay it back plus your margin, but yes, you do. Right, so if you put in an allowance of $100 and they only chose something that was worth $90, the variation difference is here. You have a $10 discount.
Does that just come out the next program time?
It does, yes. Yes. Or look, it can be done on the final balance. PCs and PSs are really not a thing that need to be done progressively. It can be done, the balance sheet, it can be done at the end.
Just to add to prime cost items and a prime cost item adjustment, to answer your question on the material, right? We were talking about there's a reduction in price. When you do your price takeoff for the reduction, there's no GST on the reduction because there's been no goods or services provided. So when you're giving the prime cost item adjustment because they've found something of a lesser price, you still keep your same price, including the margin, but the price at what they were able to find it for is less. That's what you use, but you don't add a GST component to that lesser cost because there's no goods or services provided, no GST is included. So it's just the cost of the item only. Okay, an important point.
Good point, yeah. Question is, the tile has given you, or it might not be the question, but I'll explain. The tile has given you, the builder, an allowance of $40 a square metre. When you do a provisional prime cost or PC, you've got to specify what the labour is. All right, so you're going to put in your specification that you have allowed for the tiler to lay 300 by 300 glossy, flat, ceramic tiles on a base, on a cement base or an elastic base or whatever you want to call it. That's in your specification. So you know that when your customer comes back to you and says, oh look, I found this nice glossy white big tile and it's 900 by 900, well that's not in accordance to what I've actually quoted in the specification. So you're going to have to charge, and you'll get your tiler to put in to give you a price. Okay, tiler, the owner's chosen these tiles. How much is it going to cost to lay that? So it's a variation, but you've got to specify what your allowance is for in the first place.
So you'd have to specify the labour rate for that.
If you're going to put in the labour only, yes. You could do, if the owner said, if I was the owner and I came to you and I said, look, I want big glossy tiles and I want it laid on a 45 and I want a diamond in the middle and all that, I'd be putting in labour and material. Yes, yeah, definitely. Okay, finance approval. All right, there's a couple of things. Finance approval is fairly simple. When you do your preliminary agreement, you've got a rough idea of how much this contract is going to be worth. So you might say, look, you've gone through all the information about building this house for them. Owners, you need to go and look at, with the money that you've got, you need to go and look at getting finance for 350 grand. The process is fairly simple. They've got a certain period of time. They go out, they go to their bank or lending authority or whatever. They get approval, and usually the lending approval will come direct, a copy will come to you. So you know that they've got their finance approval. Right? The contract says that when they do that, you can start, if you've got everything else, and you will get paid, usually by the financier, you'll get paid your progress payments. Okay. So that's, yeah, finance approval is fairly simple. The owner must apply to the lender for the loan approval within 5 business days from the date of the contract. The owner must give the contractor written notice on or before the loan approval date. So you actually put in a date to say you've got to achieve finance approval by this date. And as I said, most times the financier will send you a copy of the approval because the owner's got to go in with all the documentation to say this is what we're going to do. All right, that one's easy. The difficult one is, what happens if you come to me, I'm the client, and I want you to build me a house, Tambourine Mountain, $1.5 million worth. Not a problem. You think, oh, beauty, this is a good contract. This will keep me going, the boys going for a little while. All right. How are you going to pay for that? Oh, I'm going to pay you cash. Okay. How do you know that I'm going to pay you? Okay. You must ensure that I have the money, all right? Because I might be the nicest person in the world, but you've got to protect yourself. And this is the biggest thing. And it's not just with paying the whole amount of money. It might be that the owner has gone out and borrowed 50% of the contract value. What happens to the other 50%? You've still got to make sure that you're going to get paid. And they're the ones that are holding this money. How do you do it? You open up a joint account, a trust account. And don't be frightened of this, because this is your life that you're dealing with here. If you want me to build you a house, Mr. Owner, for $1.5 million and you are going to pay me cash, we will open a joint account. We'll put the money in a trust account. You can earn the interest. I don't want the interest on it, right? You can earn the interest. It can be in your name, but withdrawal can only be by both our signatures, right? And you do the same if a customer is going to finance half of the property or half of the contract. You've got to be able to secure that in some way, because I might have $1.5 million now, but hey, I might go to the races this afternoon and blow the whole lot. Somehow you've got to secure it. It's the only way, or the safest way of doing it. Put it into a bank, put it into a trust account. That can be drawn legally, that can be drawn up as an account between you and the owner. Okay, what if you're building a house or a reno? Let's say a house for a young couple. They've gone out and they borrowed the money to have their property built, and they come along to you and say, oh look, we've just inherited some money and we'd like you to put a double garage on the side of the house for us now, or turn the carport into a garage for us now. Yeah, okay, well that's going to cost you 15 grand. Yeah, that's all right. Mum and Dad are going to pay for it, or the auntie's going to pay for it, or whatever. Not only is that a variation of the contract, but you also have to think about this as well. How are you going to secure? 15 grand's a lot of money. How are you going to secure that they're going to pay you at the end of the day? They've already taken out 100%. You can't do that now, I don't think. 100% loan from the bank. I think they only give 95 or something. You've got to secure it if they're saying that they're going to pay cash. How do you know that auntie's going to pay for it as a gift? Again, same thing. You go and get the money off auntie, put it into the trust account, or let's have a trust account with auntie, right? That when I put in my claim, and if it's a variation, you put it in with the next progress claim, I will get paid. You've got to secure your own living. Finance is very important. Any quick questions? Yep. I'm not that well off. Can you afford to lose 10 grand out of your business? How much money are you going to make on this job? Not a lot, maybe 10 grand. They don't pay. How much money have you made on the job? Bugger all. Up to you. If you want to take the risk, that's fine. But basically all this stuff, guys, all this stuff is really risk management. It's up to you what you do. You're going to go away from here remembering what I've said, but it's up to you whether you actually do it. Okay, insurance. I'm not really allowed to talk about insurance because I'm not qualified to talk about insurance. I can't give you advice on insurance. However, when you're a builder and you build for an owner, you must pay BSA insurance. That's the most important one. All right? The BSA insurance. It's there for the owner's protection, and it's not something that you pay. You put it in your contract as a price, right? There are some builders out there at the moment that, dare I say it, don't put this in to win a contract. It might be cheaper than what you are. God help them if they get caught. the insurance is purely, the BSA insurance is purely to protect the owner if anything goes wrong. Very quickly, if there is a problem with a house and there is a dispute, and you, the builder, say, no, sorry, I'm not going to fix that, right? If the BSA go out there and do an inspection and deem it as being a builder's fault, a category 1 defect, they will ask you to rectify it. You might decide, no, bugger it, I've had a gutful of them, I'm not going to rectify it. They don't care whether you do or they don't, because what BSA will do is they will go and get someone to do it for them. Some of you guys might do BSA insurance work. Costs a lot more than what it would if you were going to do it to fix it, because insurance, yeah, you get good money for doing insurance work. So the BSA will go out and get the work done. They will pay for it under the insurance scheme. And guess who they're going to chase to recover their money? Because it's a defect. You, as a builder. So the longer you let it go, and it goes back to that principle thing. If you're not going to do the rectification work because you think the owner is a technical term, then BSA will come and bite you real hard. So make sure you pay that insurance basically to cover yourself as well. How long does the insurance last for? 6 years and 6 months. 6 months is the maintenance period. 6 years is the defects liability period. You are responsible for that house for 6 years and 6 months. If anything goes wrong in that period, BSA are entitled to go out there and rectify it and come chasing you if there is a fault for rectification. What you do after that with your subbies, if it was a subbies problem, then you've got to go chase them. But you are responsible for that entire project when you put your licence number on that contract. Time extension claims. I will read this. The contractor may claim and is entitled to reasonable extension of the date of practical completion if the contractor is or will be delayed in achieving practical completion on the works which are beyond the reasonable control of the contractor, delays occasioned by the owner, variations, and variations requested by the owner. Sorry, that one's variation. Delays occasioned by the owner. Go back to my pool scenario. John has advised that there's a separate contract for the pool and a separate contract for the house. Right, we've done the platform as the builder under the housing contract. The owner has contracted old mate to put the pool in, right? And they're way beyond time. And you're sitting there waiting. You can't do anything, right? Because it's the owner's responsibility to deal with the pool builder, then you can put in an extension of time due to delays occasioned by the owner. On top of that, if it went on for, I don't think I've got this slide in here, but I'll explain this to you anyway. Let's say that you do build something, and I know this is all doom and gloom, guys, but you've got to understand this is what could happen to you. You go out there and build a house, and there is a problem at the end that the owner won't pay you. Might not be the full balance, and I'm sure we've all been in that. God, that happens just about every day of the week now. Final payment, 10 grand, I'll give you 8. That is tough. Not sure how to advise you on that one, but that's happening on a regular basis. Anyway, you built a house. There is a problem at the end that the owner hasn't paid you the final payment. They might turn around and say, look, I'm not going to pay you until you finish the work. Right? According to the contract, they're not allowed to do that. The house can be handed over with minor defects or omissions. And I mean minor, right? You might have missed putting a lock on the door, or there might be a touch-up paint or somewhere like that to be done. the owner turns around and says, I'm not going to pay you until you do that work. You turn around and say, well, I'm not going to do the work until you pay me. You end up in a dispute. The dispute goes on and on and on and on and on. All of a sudden it ends up again in the tribunal. What's going to happen in this case is that the owner's going to be at fault this time, because the contract is very clear that the house can be handed over with minor omissions or defects, right? So the builder is entitled to do that. And I mean minor, don't go half house. So the owner is wrong. The judge would turn around to the owner and say, owner, you're wrong. The builder is entitled to get paid. Builder, you do have to go back and finish the work, but you are entitled to get paid. Now, the fact that this has gone on for months and months and months and months, and it might have been a $30,000 payment at the end. 6 months at $30,000 can earn you a lot of interest. If you look at your contract closely, the contract says that you are entitled to interest on overdue payments. And I'm not going to tell you how much it is because it's worked out on a daily basis through the Reserve Bank and all that sort of stuff. I'm not sure how that's for accountants to work out. But you are entitled to get paid for overdue payment. So not only will a judge in this case say, owner, you're wrong, pay the builder, but pay him 10% interest of the amount overdue for the last 6 months. All right? So there is a way where the contract has actually benefited you. That it's helped you get through any problems that you had. Right? You're entitled to that. Why wouldn't you be? Practical completion date, we've spoken about this. You can either put in a date for practical completion, right? Your actual date, you're going to finish on a certain day. Strongly recommend you don't do that because trucks are going to rock up, earth movers, landscapers are going to rock up, the concrete is going to rock up to put the driveway in. You're going to have a removalist out there, you're going to have a curtain person coming in, and then all of a sudden there's something goes wrong. You haven't finished on time. Very hard, very dangerous to put in a practical completion date. So the option you have is so many calendar days calculated in Schedule 4 from the starting date. All right, so this is where you're able to say, remember that calendar, it had 132 days on it? We've worked out that it was going to be a 132-day contract. So we'll say 132 days calculated from the time when the job starts. Now, we haven't put in a start date. We put in that we will start 7 days after we've got everything, right? So you're not committed to a start date, and this way you're not committed to a completion date. So the best thing that you could do is say, tick the box to say, we will start when we've got everything ready, and we will finish so many days after we start. Right? And there's your contract. It's as simple as that. If you start putting in dates, you could be up for liquidated damages. I've spoken about your defects document. That's if you don't get paid. Okay, final slide. We've made it. What I've got up here is very difficult to see. Guys, I strongly recommend get a checklist. Right? Checklists are the greatest things that you guys can use. When you get, as a builder, right, and you can get these, you can get a framing checklist, you can get a bricklaying checklist, you can get a supervision checklist, you can get a completion checklist. I don't know whether too many people have seen this because I developed this. I've now put together a contract checklist. So when you're actually signing a contract, you can go through, okay, do I have a contract that complies with the DBCA? So if you've got a master builder's contract or a HIA contract or a BSA contract, yes, tick. I've got the owner's names and the details, builder's name, the work adequately described. So as part of the contract, you've got to describe what the work is you're going to do. And when you're doing a new home, that's fairly simple. 2-storey, brick veneered, double lock-up, 3-bedroom garage, right? So you describe the work. I'm sorry that this is hard to see. Have I put a start date in there or have I put in a construction period? So it actually prompts you to, It's one of those things that, and you go through all that and go, okay, have I got my, right down to the end, even to a safety plan. Right? Have I got all that? It's all part of your contractual obligations. When you got to that, you go, yep, okay, I'm now ready to go and see the customer with my contract. All right? And the whole deal about this is risk management. Right from the very word this morning, this is here to help you secure your risks. You're going out there as a builder. Trust me, it's a big bad world out there. If you don't have something that's going to help you with your risks, good luck. Okay, questions? Questions on anything? BSYPA Act? The BSA currently have an act called the BSYPA Act, the Building Construction Industry Payments Act. The question was, is that relevant to customer-builder relationship? The answer is no. The BSYPA Act is purely for builder subcontractor, and not only is it the Building Industry Construction Payments Act, but there is also the Subcontractors Charges Act that goes with it. Right, so two totally different things. The only thing that is that legally responsible between the builder and the owner is the Domestic Building Contracts Act and the QBSA Act. Liquidated damages is per day, calendar day. Calendar day, yes. Yeah. Your contract is per working day. Right, so when you work out your contract period, you'll work out that it might take you 60 days to build a house, but then you've got 5 lots of weekends in there, so there's another 10 days. Then there's another 5 holidays in there, so there's another 5 days. Right, then you might add on a couple of weeks holiday, so there's another 10 days. So that's how you build your contract period up. Is calculable delays a two-way street? Yep. Why should you suffer? Because you've gone out, Mr. Owner, and selected tiles from Italy and they're bubbling around the ocean somewhere and I can't do any work. I've had all my contractors programmed in that the electrician will come on one day, the tiler will come on the next, or the waterproofer, then the tiler, then the painter, and so on. Right? You've just stuffed up my program because these bloody tiles that you've chosen are way out there. I can't do anything. I've got to send all my guys away. Right? I've then got the administrative work to have to get them back. When I don't know, I've got to write out a time extension claim to be able to do this. I've got the administration, so guess what? Bang. And on top of that, my progress payments, which are due then, now this is tough, I wouldn't go this far, but you're entitled to it. My progress payment, which is due then, is now not going to be due for another month, so I'm going to charge a month's interest. You're entitled to it. Don't say that you'd ever do it, but you're entitled to it. No, absolutely not. When you put a price together, right, and I recommend this for a quote as well, whether it be a small one or a large one or a contract, don't break it up. Don't give them any figures at all. Because what's going to happen, if you start quoting figures, they're going to come back and they're going to start disputing you with it. You might say that the tile is going to be there for 4 hours at $100 an hour. What's going to happen if the tile is only there for 3 hours? The owner's going to turn around and say, I want $100. You said he was going to be there for 4 hours. You've charged me for 4 hours, but he's not. Combine it all in one. Right? Work out your cost, put a figure in, put your GST in, and put a total. 3 figures. When you work out your labour and your material costs, put your margin on top of that. Then put it on a quote. Right? And there should be 2 margins, one for your overheads and one for your profit. Remember, the money that you get for your profit the amount of money you get at the end of the job has got to pay for your overheads as well. It's got to pay for the phones, it's got to pay for the fuel, it's got to pay for the cars, it's got to pay for the insurance, all that sort of stuff. So if you're doing a job and you say, I'm going to do it as labour and material, so you work out all your labour, all your material, and then you put your 10% profit on top of it and thinking that you're making 10% at the end of every job. You're not. You're probably actually losing 2% because you've got to pay for all the things all your work that you do, all your administration, all your paperwork. So you should have two charges: your labour, your material, or two percentage. Your labour, your material, then you put your overhead costs on it. Your overhead costs at the moment might average, depending on the size, an average size builder would be around 13%, maybe more, average size builder. And then you put your profit on top of that. So your profit might be 7%. So where you guys are saying labour and material and profit of 10%, you're losing 10. Should be labour and material, 20% on top, and then you're covering all your overheads, making a living, and then you put your GST on top of that, final figure. That's what you give to the owner, 3 figures. Do not break it down, otherwise I'll come back and have a crack at you about it.
Paul, may I add?
Absolutely.
Following up what Paul's exactly said, if with the variation, somewhere there, yeah, the variation, no, you don't give them any money back. It's just you calculate you just calculate the difference, and then it's take what if it's added on, you add that on to the progress payment cost, or you take it off the progress claim cost. Okay, but no, you don't give them back money. Then you take money back off. It's just in that one payment, either you add it on, or you take it off at the next progress claim. Yeah.
Thanks, Damien.